When she said that, she had only listened to the intro song where it goes, Hot Mess Murder Club. And I was
Did she think
did
that's
you
us?
finish listening? That's what I said. I said, did you finish listening?
It's a 5-second intro, and that's all she heard.
It was really loud and it startled her.
The patience is real with our fans.
Yeah.
Okay. Kiki, not now, please. Welcome to Hot Mess Murder Club, where the cases are ugly, the motives are petty, and family loyalty has an expiration date once money gets involved. I am Kat, and with me, as always, is Holly, the person who hears they were just helping out and immediately starts calculating how long it took before resentment turned into a murder plan. Holly, how are you?
I'm good. But because nobody helps out forever, at some point, it stops feeling generous and starts feeling owed. And once someone decides that your money, your house, or your lifestyle belongs to them, you're no longer a person. You've become a resource.
Damn, Skippy. That was very, very insightful this time. You must have learned something.
I did some research.
There you go. I want to apologize ahead of time. My cat is meowing furiously in the background, and I'm not starting the recording over just because Kiki wants to make her presence known. It's late, and we're going to keep going. I'm sorry. Anyways, and to understand how this kind of entitlement from this case curdles into something this extreme, you have to start before the violence, before the disappearance, before the house in Tai Po. This story doesn't begin with a murder, obviously. It begins the moment comfort turns into expectation. So, Holly, you're going to need your passport again today, babe girl. You ready?
Where are we going?
Today, we are going to Hong Kong. All the way to Hong Kong.
I don't speak Spanish very well.
Wow. Well, that's a good thing because neither do they, I would assume. Oh my God. It is February 2023 in Hong Kong. And on the outside, Abby Choi looks untouchable. She's beautiful, she's 28, she's wealthy, visible, a fixture in the elite social circles, fashion events, designer relationships, a life that reads as protected just by proximity to money and status. But under that polished surface, something has been tightening for a while. And it's not a mystery or some kind of secret enemy. It's a financial dispute that never resolved and a family arrangement that had gone on far longer than it definitely should have.
Well, divorce doesn't end a relationship when the money stays involved. It just changes resentment from loud and messy to quiet and patient.
That is correct. I don't like how I came back into that at all.
No, thank you, though. I was correct. You didn't want to start over. Let's keep going.
All right, fuck it. So before the investigation, before the court dates and evidence lists, Abby Choi lived a life that was full, social, and outward-facing. She was born on July 11th, 1994. Oh, God, she's a baby. Poor thing. She was born in Hong Kong and grew up in an environment where travel, fashion, and social connection were simply part of daily life. As an adult, Abby moved comfortably through Hong Kong's high society circles. She worked as a model and a socialite, attended fashion events, charity functions, private gatherings, and frequently appeared at international shows. Paris Fashion Week was something she returned to, not something she aspired to. So Abby appeared to genuinely enjoy these spaces. She liked it all. She liked being out. She liked the rhythm of these events and the travel and the social life. She was often described as warm, friendly, and easy to be around. Someone who fit naturally into those rooms, not someone performing for them.
Well, she wasn't chasing status. She was already comfortable in it, and that ease showed. Outside of public appearances, Abby's life was anchored by routine. She was a mother of 4, deeply involved in her children's lives. Her days were structured around school schedules, pickups, family time, and maintaining stability. Friends described her as attentive and present, someone who balanced her public life with hands-on parenting. That balance was a defining part of who she was. Abby wasn't living recklessly or detached from responsibility. She moved between high-profile events and ordinary family obligations without treating either as more important than the other.
She married young and later divorced her first husband, Alex Kwong, who she had her first 2 children with. After the divorce, she remained connected to his families in ways that went way beyond co-parenting. Abby continued to provide support, including housing arrangements that allowed them to remain comfortable. At the time, it appeared to be an extension of her tendency to maintain harmony and avoid conflict. Money existed in Abby's life, but it wasn't her defining feature. It was simply part of the environment she moved through, much like fashion or travel. She was known to be generous, accommodating, and patient, often prioritizing peace over confrontation. Gosh, she sounds so nice.
Yeah, she really does. She sounds like a peacemaker, somebody who's wholesome, somebody very opposite of me.
Oh my. Well, yeah, because I saw a picture of her and she's so cute too, so I guess that does kind of fit your description.
Thanks. I think that was a compliment.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Because you just said it was opposite. That's a dick move. That's fine. It's okay.
We're going to keep rolling, remember? We're not starting over.
That's right. People around her came to expect that steadiness, that generosity, and expectations have a way of settling in quietly.
And after her divorce, Abby remarried and settled into a new chapter of her life with Chris Tam. Within her social circle, the two were widely regarded as husband and wife. They underwent traditional wedding rites and held a large celebratory ceremony in 2016, one that publicly marked their union and signaled a fresh start. From the outside, there was no ambiguity. Abby and Chris moved through high society as a married couple. They attended the events together, traveled, and were treated as family by those around them. Chris's family, the founders of the Tamjai Yunan Mixian, I'm sure I fucked that up, so I apologize. The founders of that restaurant chain openly embraced Abby as their daughter, welcoming her into their orbit both privately and publicly. What few people focused on was the paperwork. According to close family friends, Abby and Chris planned to legally register the marriage but never completed the process. Their life and travel and business and family responsibilities kept getting in the way. It was a detail that felt administrative and not urgent, something to handle later, because I believe they also had 2 kids together of their own. So now she's got 2 permanent kids in the home and juggling 2 more. So I can see how they'd be a little bit too busy. You know, if they're already acting married and they went through the ceremony, why the fuck do we need to file the paperwork? It's already done. I get that.
Yeah. Nobody's got time for that when you got kids running around the house.
Yeah, especially 4 of them. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, I have 2 and I want to rip out my hair. So in their world, the relationship didn't need a certificate to be real. Everybody already treated it as one. However, that distinction would later carry significant consequences because the marriage was never legally registered. Chris Tam had no legal claim to Abby's estate, estimated at roughly $38 million. Under Hong Kong law, in the absence of a legal spouse, Abby's 4 children became the sole primary heirs to her fortune. But at the time, none of that appeared to matter. Abby's life felt stable. She was remarried in every way that counted socially, actively raising her children and maintaining the relationships and routines that had defined her adult life. Her days moved between family responsibilities and the social world that she had enjoyed. Without any outward sense of instability or crisis, she was not retreating from her life, she was settled into it. And that sense of normalcy is what makes what came next so jarring.
Yeah, and it really does. Once we get through this whole thing and realize what happened, it is completely out of left field, insane, dumb fucking behavior. So after her divorce from Alex Kwong, Abby did not disengage from his family. Officially, this was for the sake of her 2 children with Alex. Functionally, it meant she continued operating as the financial backbone for the entire Kwong household. Now, for the sake of not confusing everyone with all of the different sums of money in 2 different currencies, we're just going to use US dollars instead of translating Hong Kong dollars to US, just to kind of keep it simple. So with that being said, over the course of several years, Abby is estimated to have provided the family with more than $1.27 million in direct financial support. Damn. This covered housing, daily expenses, and long-term stability. It was not sporadic assistance, it was consistent, structured, and deeply embedded into how the family lived. And Abby also created employment for them on top of everything else. She hired Alex's brother, Anthony, as her personal chauffeur, providing him with a regular salary. And when that income proved insufficient, she reportedly purchased a pancake stand for him, intended to give him an additional source of revenue. And this wasn't framed as a loan or an investment. It was support designed to keep him financially afloat, as if she wasn't fucking doing that for all of them already. They sound greedy as hell, don't they?
It sounds like entitlement. Yeah. And it usually happens with at least one member of a family somewhere. But in this case, it's the whole family. The whole family feels like they're entitled to what she's got.
Yeah, it's fucking sad.
So at some point, this stops being help and starts being infrastructure. Because Abby also covered the full cost of raising her two older children on top of everything else, in testimony given by Abby's mother in June 2025, she stated that the Kwong family didn't pay a penny towards the children's living expenses. Their education, food, daily care, every cost was absorbed by Abby. Childcare itself became part of the financial arrangement. Alex's mother, Jenny Lee, was reportedly paid a monthly salary of approximately $6,400 to look after the children while living in the Kadoorie Hill apartment, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. There's a lot to cover here. The thing is, the Kwong family was carrying a significant debt. Multiple members were financially unstable, relying on Abby's money to maintain what investigators later described as a high life that they could not otherwise afford. Over time, the reliance hardened into expectation.
Can you imagine getting paid $6,400 a month to watch your grandkids?
I mean, I feel like grandparents are supposed to do that shit for free. Just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. You know, your retirement is actually when you become a permanent daycare provider. So fuck your free time. You're now helping raise my children. But $6,400 a month?
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's more than most people make at work.
Yeah, by a lot. And yeah, when someone pays your rent, your salary, and your childcare, they stop being a person and they become a permanent support system you assume will never shut down. That entire system revolved around a luxury apartment in Kadoorie Hill, valued at $9.3 million. Abby paid for the property in full, but it was registered under her former father-in-law, Kwong Kao, a move reportedly made.
His name is Cow.
Jesus Christ, here we go. Holly needs a nap.
It's okay. I'm going to make fun of a lot of these names and words. Keep going.
God. Anyway, so she put the apartment in her father-in-law Kwong's name, a move reportedly made to save approximately $900,000 in stamp duty. And stamp duty is sort of like real estate property tax here in the U.S. So because he was a first-time buyer, big quotes on that, the tax rate was 4.25% instead of 15%. So that's big money moves right there. That was very smart on her part at the time. So for years, the arrangement went unchallenged. The family lived there very comfortably. Abby continued paying, and the structure held because it benefited everyone except the person funding it. But in late 2022, Abby decided to sell the apartment. And her being the kind of person that she was, she didn't demand that the family leave without any alternatives. She reportedly offered to relocate them to another home. Unsurprisingly, Kwong opposed the sale outright, and what followed here was described as huge financial disputes.
That's the moment a benefactor becomes a threat. Like, I'm sorry, she's trying to give you another house when she owes you nothing. And now you're mad and you're saying no, and now it's a problem.
Yeah, I think that sounds childish for one, like a little kid in Toys R Us who doesn't get the toy they want. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's my kid.
A nightmare. Just kids in Toys R Us is a nightmare in general.
Wong cow.
But anyways, okay. As investigators continued digging, they uncovered deeper layers of instability. Alex Kwong, who was her ex, had been a wanted fugitive since 2015, accused of gold and jewelry thefts totaling around $800,000. His mother later admitted she hid his belongings from police, allowing him to evade authorities while still benefiting from Abby's financial support. And I understand that we can't just breeze over that, so because I love you all so much, I already Googled it for you to save a little bit of time. So this is kind of the story as to how Alex became a fugitive, and this does come into play later. So in February 2015, Kwong was arrested in connection with a fraudulent gold investment scheme. At just 20 years old, he allegedly used dating apps to target at least 7 men, convincing them to purchase jewelry and gold bars under the promise of speculative investment. Once the items were handed over, Kwong vanished. All in all, it was 13 gold bars, 102 gold grains, 39 gold necklaces, all together valued at approximately $806,000. And a partridge in a fucking pear tree, I guess. Alex had misled Abby and her family into believing that his charges had been dealt with by his father, Kwong, who just happened to be a former police sergeant, which I kept forgetting to mention until just now. But it says later that year, he was scheduled to stand trial. Instead, in August 2015, he skipped bail. And by November, when his 15-day trial was set to begin, he was long gone. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and officially, Alex became a fugitive.
That's interesting and all, but this episode isn't about that douchebag's prior criminal history. It's about Abby. But it's good to know what kind of piece of shit he already was, for the record.
I agree. Well, now you know. The more you know, the big star goes across the screen.
Yeah, with the rainbow.
Yeah. And I couldn't just leave that out. It's unfinished business, and my Google senses were kind of going off. But you're right. Let's get our sidetracked asses back to the case.
Anyways, so we left off with what investigators discovered after the fact. They also discovered that even after Kwong Kao became the legal owner of a $9.3 million luxury mansion in 2019, thanks to Abby, he was also already a resident of a subsidized public housing flat. The government never bothered to reassess his assets when he applied to purchase said flat in 2020 because he was already a long-term tenant. The result was a man quietly double-dipping the system, living off of a multi-million-dollar property while claiming benefits intended for people who actually needed them. And Abby knew none of this. So with all of this going on, by the time Abby moved to reclaim control over the apartment that she purchased, the financial ecosystem surrounding the Kwong family had been operating on her money for years. It was dependent on her.
And this is where kind of like the apartment war, we're going to call it, starts to really escalate. So by January 2023, the fight over the Kadori Hill apartment had stopped being a disagreement and started looking more like a pressure campaign. What had once been framed as a family arrangement curdled really fast. Conversations between Kwong Kao and Abby reportedly turned extremely hostile. According to investigators, Kao threatened Abby directly, warning her that if she went through with selling the apartment, he would kill her and everyone else. And that's not a metaphor, not an emotional outburst later walked back. It was a legitimate threat. And at the time, Abby sought legal counsel because, remember, we told you the apartment was registered in Kao's name. Her lawyers told her that despite the name being registered under Kwong Kao, she could likely retain the proceeds of the sale if she could provide proof that she had paid for the property herself. So in other words, the legal ground under the Kwong family's feet was starting to crack. And once someone realizes they're about to lose the thing they've been living inside, the conversation stops being about money and starts being about survival.
In early February 2023, Kwong Kao personally rented a ground floor unit in a 3-story village house. This wasn't a last-minute scramble or a favor done through somebody else. He handled it himself, securing the space roughly 2 or 3 weeks before Abby was murdered. Long enough to plan, long enough to prepare, and long enough to know exactly why he needed it. He paid about $1,275 for the unit. Cheap, quiet, and unremarkable. The kind of place that doesn't attract attention and doesn't ask questions. This was not a home meant to be lived in, but a location meant to be used.
And this location wasn't random. Lung Mai Tsuen, I know I fucked that up, I know I did, is a secluded seaside village near Tai Po, far enough removed to stay quiet, close enough to disappear into. It also happens to sit near Plover Cove Reservoir, where police would later search for missing remains. The entire process of obtaining this place was horrifyingly strategic, especially for someone who used to be in law enforcement. The flat in Lung Mai Tsuen, you know what? The flat in Lung Mai, his fucking flat wasn't rented to live in. Kwang Kao cleared it out of anything that suggested daily life and replaced it with what he actually needed. No beds, no tables, no chairs, nothing soft and nothing for human use. Just empty space, stripped down so movement wouldn't be blocked and nothing would get in the way. What filled that space instead tells you exactly what it was for. Holly, quit fucking nodding at me like that and get on with it. Like I don't fucking see you.
There was also quite a few power tools and other assorted out-of-place items that were kept there. Tools that don't belong together unless the plan involves breaking a body down into parts. We'll get into where these were later when we talk about what happened in this house. Just know these items were absolutely brought in deliberately, collected and staged like someone knew in advance what each of these weird-ass assembly of tools would be used for. I'm getting some Dexter vibes. I'm just going to roll right through it. The walls were covered in plastic sails and tarp, sealing the room to prevent blood from soaking in, not to stop the mess, but to manage it. Long raincoats were laid out, along with face shields, masks, and gloves, everything needed to create distance between the people doing the work and what they were doing it to. This isn't panic. This wasn't improvisation. This was someone accepting ahead of time that there would be blood everywhere and deciding that they didn't want it on themselves or on the walls.
And you know what? You forgot to mention the fridge and the pots and pans that were also in there, which if you're a regular listener, you know I brought this up for a very ominous reason.
Ooh, that's incredible insight, Kat. What did these assholes do next?
Well, I'm so happy you asked, Holly, because they turn into even bigger pieces of white dog shit than they already were. Let me tell you guys about it. So Abby was at the Kadori Hill estate that day for the most common reason imaginable, to run a routine family errand. Now, Abby had moved on to a separate luxury residence with her current partner, Chris, but she still came back to the Kadori Hill regularly because that apartment had become the logistical hub for dealing with her ex's family, keyword dealing with his family. That included childcare coordination, pickups, handoffs, normal things people do when they're trying to keep life stable for their kids.
Well, nothing disarms you faster than routine, especially when it involves your child.
Exactly. So the entire abduction of Abby Choi was not chaotic, emotional, or impulsive. It was a deliberate, multi-stage operation carried out by people who relied on her trust, her routines, and her basic decency to get close enough to destroy her. On February 21st, 2023, everything unfolded exactly as these evil monsters planned it to. Holly, why don't you start off telling us how she came to be at that staged-ass Dexter murder house?
Well, I hate this story, but I'll do it for the sake of our listeners. Between 2:15 and 2:30 p.m., Abby was captured on CCTV leaving her residence in the Kadori Hill area. She was dressed casually, a white long-sleeve top, white trousers, white slippers, a purple handbag. Nothing about her appearance suggested anything out of the ordinary. She was leaving to go and do what she had done countless times before. However, if I'm seeing you wear slippers outside, that's not out of the ordinary. Like, she's supposed to be like rich. Aren't they supposed to wear like fancy shit?
Have you seen Justin Bieber?
Oh, he's gross.
He wears like trash bags. So I don't know. She's wearing slip. If that's the worst of it is slippers, let her slipper, man. Let her slipper.
Well, she entered a white 7-seater Toyota Alphard driven by Anthony Kwong, her ex-brother-in-law and longtime personal chauffeur, the man that she had trusted with her transportation and her children's safety. She got into that car voluntarily because she believed that they were making the short 15-minute drive to pick up her daughter from school. That belief was the trap. However, the vehicle did not drive towards the school. Instead, it made a deliberate detour and then a stop. This was not a wrong turn, it was a handoff. As the 7-seater Toyota approached Lion Rock Tunnel, Anthony stopped the vehicle at a prearranged location. This wasn't him hitting traffic and trying to avoid it. That's when Alex Kwong stepped in. Alex didn't just simply join the ride, he boarded a vehicle that had already been set up like a cage. Abby was seated in the back, and once Alex entered, she was physically boxed in between two brothers. No open door, no easy exit, and no space to move. The moment he got in, the situation flipped from errand to entrapment. The Toyota isn't just the family car, it has tinted windows, space to move without being seen, and enough room to overpower someone without drawing any attention. From the outside, it looked like any other school-run minivan. On the inside, it became the crime scene.
And investigators actually believe that Abby was attacked and knocked unconscious either inside the Lion Rock Tunnel area or immediately after Alex boarded. Not later, not at the house, right there in the van. The assault was violent enough to leave blood splatter inside the vehicle that later matched to Abby's DNA. This was no domestic struggle that got out of hand. This was a deliberate assault in a moving, enclosed space where help was impossible. Court evidence made it clear that Abby's skull was violently fractured by a hard object while she was still inside, meaning they didn't wait, they didn't hesitate, and they didn't care if she lived long enough to understand what was happening. But by the time the van reached the rental house, roughly 30 minutes later, Abby was already at the very least unconscious or most likely dead. Whatever chance she had ended in that vehicle, between two men who decided she wasn't leaving alive.
This is the point where your stomach realizes it was right to be uneasy. CCTV footage shows Anthony Kwong unloading a large plastic storage box from the van and carrying it into the house. He did it calmly. He wasn't rushed. He was cool as a cucumber, which is fucked up because police believe that box actually contained Abby's body.
Holy shit. Sit with that moment. Like, imagine you can see your neighbor or somebody carrying just a large box, casual as fuck, like into their house. And then it turns out like that was a person in there just dead.
I feel like you can make that assumption about any large trash bag, box, or anything else. Personally, I don't think I would have thought anything of it if I had seen somebody carrying a big, large, like, tote into their home. Because I use totes for, like, my Christmas decorations or extra clothes or whatever. I wouldn't have thought anything of it. It would have been a little fucked if later it was, in fact, a body. So I see what you're saying, but personally, I don't feel like that's too out of the ordinary.
I'm going to check your totes because I don't trust that answer at fucking all. Now you're really trying to deflect like, nope, there's no body in here. It's just Christmas decor. Ho, ho, ho. Nothing to see here.
It's fine.
Anyway, so they didn't panic or rush or lose control while carrying her into the house. They moved her with purpose, like cargo, because by then they'd already decided that she wasn't a person anymore. This wasn't a family dispute or a moment of desperation. It was a planned abduction carried out by people who weaponized trust, routine, and a mother's schedule. Every step was deliberate. Every choice was made.
So investigators believe the dismemberment began immediately. Inside the flat were electric saws, chainsaws, a meat grinder.
Always a fucking meat grinder.
Slicers, cleavers, and hammers. Industrial tools, kitchen tools, like we mentioned earlier, those were all brought there ahead of time for one purpose. This wasn't rage, this was workflow.
Another day in the fucking kitchen here at Hot Mess Murder Club.
Yum.
God, I wonder if they got the recipe from Catherine Knight. Oh, God, yeah, because you don't bring this many tools unless you already know exactly what you're about to do with a body. That's the creepy part.
Yeah, and at some point after Abby was killed, her skull and ribs were actually placed into two large stainless steel pots on the stove. Carrots and green radishes were added, and the mixture was boiled.
Catherine Knight.
Not to cook, but to destroy. Police believe that this was an attempt to break down tissue, degrade DNA, and disguise the smell of decomposition by mimicking ordinary household soup, as if vegetables can make this less monstrous, as if pretending this was food would somehow undo what they were doing. With when the story of Catherine Knight had happened, since that was in 2000, that was roughly, um, 17 years or something before this?
This was in 2023. You're doing good at math.
Fuck you, Cat. I'm just saying, the Catherine Knight story, like, if people are trying to get away with murder and if they're trying to plot and plan, chances are that they've done some research or thought of something. Aside from me knowing this, because I watch these true crime documentaries, I read up on it, I read about serial killers. It's not something I feel is commonly known that you can throw someone's body parts in a pot and boil it with vegetables to try to like mask the smell of decomposition. So I wonder if they did their research, saw how she had done that, and kind of use that, because that'd be fun. I mean, not fun, but I mean, it would be. It would be
I'm really
interesting to
checking
know.
those fucking totes now. I'm 100% coming over to your house and looking at every box that says Christmas decorations.
I'm just saying, it would be interesting to know that they had gotten their information that they used to commit their murder by reading up on a murder that we actually already covered. That would just be a cool concept to think about.
Yeah, well, really, a lot of murderers, I feel like, have openly said that they were trying to be like this serial killer or this guy or that guy, and they do it kind of on purpose. It's just weird because, I mean, if they're in Hong Kong, they've really had to like go far for an idea of how to cook someone's head. You know what I mean? I'm sure they're in China, they probably have plenty of weird fucking shit going on.
They always eat soup. So like they said, like, it wouldn't be. Why are you
Hold
giving me
on.
that look?
Why do you think they only eat soup in
I
China?
said they always eat soup. Not
Oh.
only. They eat
like-
rice too.
Oh,
And some dogs, I think. Maybe there's a cat or a pigeon. I don't know. Do they eat monkeys? I feel like they eat monkeys too. Isn't
Do
that
they?
a thing?
I don't know.
Or pandas? I think they eat
No,
pandas.
I know they don't eat pandas.
Don't they eat pandas because they're mad at Japan? Like they have like a Hong Kong and Japan is like a battle? No? Is that,
I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you
Yeah,
dream
me
this?
I'm just making shit up as I go, I guess.
Kind of like, what'd you say about Canada with their scared of the dark and ghosts or some shit? Where do you get this information?
People in Canada are afraid of the dark. That is a fact.
People
That
literally fucking everywhere are afraid of the dark, Holly. It's not a trait specific to Canada.
But they're like all afraid of the dark.
For fuck's sake. We're going to keep going. I can't do this with you. It is almost 9:30.
Okay.
Anyways, so back in the murder house, one pot was found nearly full, containing human tissue, hair, a skull, and ribs mixed together. Her legs, which were severed cleanly, were found intact inside of a refrigerator. Some parts were boiled, some parts were chilled. All of it was deliberate. Like, they're cooking hair? What the fuck?
I mean, like I said, they like their soup, so maybe like that's the noodle. That's ramen, bitch.
I think they took angel hair a little bit too literally. Dun dun dun.
Are you calling Abby an angel? I guess she is now.
Yeah. See? I totally meant that.
Yeah, you totally fell right into that.
Absolutely. I am so clever. Just fucking keep going.
Well, the forensic examination of Abby's skull revealed a large hole behind her right ear, caused by a fatal blow from a hard object. That injury alone was enough to kill her. Everything that followed wasn't about violence anymore. It was about erasure.
Police believe that the suspects dumped Abby's torso, arms, and hands between February 22nd and 23rd, likely in the Northeast New Territories landfill or nearby sewer systems. More than 100 officers searched for 3 days in hazmat suits. Those parts were never recovered. She was reported missing while this was happening. And when police first contacted the Kwong family on February 22nd, they didn't panic. They lied, obviously. They claimed Abby had gotten out of the car somewhere else, that she'd gone on her own, that nothing was wrong, all while pieces of her were being disposed of.
When police finally raided the flat on February 24th, what they found confirmed the worst possibilities. Her legs in the refrigerator, her skull and ribs in the pots on the stove, her ID cards, her credit cards, and her purple handbag.
Not the purple handbag.
Everyday objects sitting next to proof.
Wait. Where are her slippers? Keep going.
I don't know. It's probably wrapped up in the plastic. Everyday objects sitting next to proof that was never meant to be survivable. While a meat grinder and an electric slicer were present, forensic evidence suggests they were only used to process tissue, not her entire body. This was horrific. This was selective destruction designed to make identification and cause of death as difficult as possible. It's why investigators and outlets like the South China Morning Post described the flat as a butchery suite. That has a nice ring to it, the butchery suite.
Yeah, it does. Well, because that is exactly what it was. A space built to turn a person into parts. This wasn't about killing her. It was about making sure there was as little of her left as possible. From the moment police started asking questions, the Kwong family didn't act confused. They acted strategically. The first lie came from Anthony Kwong, Abby's chauffeur and the last person to see her alive. He told investigators he had dropped her off at a random unknown location somewhere in the Tai Po area. He claimed he couldn't remember exactly where. Not a street, not a building, just a vague shrug that sent police chasing meaningless surveillance footage for hours. It was a stall tactic, and it fucking worked.
Well, for someone who trusted to drive children around on a schedule, his memory suddenly just went missing right on cue. How convenient.
Yeah, convenient, right? Well, at the same time, Abby's former mother-in-law, Jenny Lee, was running her own interference. Despite Alex Kwong having stayed at the Kadori Hill apartment for 11 consecutive days before the murder, Lee told police he wasn't there. According to her, the only people living in that flat were herself, 2 grandchildren, and domestic helpers. That, however, was fake news.
Later in court, Lee admitted she deliberately refused to let police search the apartment because she had what she had described as, quote, a skeleton in the closet. She feared investigators would find Alex's belongings and confirm that he was hiding in there. This wasn't panic. This was a conscious decision to obstruct. Bitch.
And when someone uses the phrase skeleton in the closet while blocking a murder investigation, believe them. There's probably a skeleton in the closet.
Yeah, well, Lee didn't stop there. She contacted Abby's mother, Chung Yen Fa, multiple times and actively discouraged her from cooperating with police. She suggested waiting for a kidnapper to call before involving authorities, even though Abby's disappearance had none of the hallmarks of a ransom situation. This wasn't misguided hope, it was delay. Meanwhile, Kwong Kao and both sons were described by police as very uncooperative, providing statements that were inconsistent, evasive, and openly misleading. None of their stories had aligned, and none of them matched the evidence. Individually, the lies were sloppy. Together, they were coordinated.
And these smokescreens bought the family nearly 48 hours. 2 days where evidence was destroyed, remains were disposed of, and stories were rehearsed. It wasn't until police stopped listening to the Kwongs and started trusting data that the facade collapsed. Investigators cross-checked GPS records from the minivan against surveillance footage and realized Abby never exited that vehicle, at least not by foot. That trail led directly to the rental house. So in the end, the lies didn't save them. They just made the timeline sound really fucking stupid.
Well, they didn't outsmart the police. They just proved how badly they needed time and exactly what they were going to do with it.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because once Abby's remains were discovered, the illusion that this could be lied away collapsed immediately. The case stopped being about a missing person and became what it had always been, a coordinated homicide with too many moving parts and too many people involved to keep it quiet for long. Within hours of discovery, investigators began tracking Alex Kwong, and he did what he had always done when consequences approached him. he skedaddled.
Typical man. Faced with responsibility, it's time to go.
Yeah, boot, scoot, and boogie. Get on out of there.
Why do you always have to honky tonk on every episode?
Because I know you don't like it now, so I'm going to try and do at least one honky tonkism per episode.
Do you really feel like that's the right choice to make, Catherine? Oh, you're not Catherine. I'm sorry. Kathy.
You're the one with bodies in your tubs. In your Christmas tubs.
Says who?
Me.
Tell your cat to shut up.
Tell your face to shut up. This is her house, too. If she wants to say something, she is damn well allowed to say something.
Well, she's clearly saying it. She's overpowering you.
As she usually does.
Okay.
Anyways, and to understand just how arrogant Alex Kwong was after murdering Abby, it helps to kind of understand how illegal sea escapes actually work in Hong Kong. This wasn't a panic move, it was a plan. It was a dumb one, but it was still a plan. See, the goal was simple. Get to Macau. You can't drive there. You can't casually cross a border when your name is already flagged. So if you're a fugitive, you need water, you need boats, and you need people willing to ignore what you've done in exchange for money. And Alex knew that. So right now we're going to take a moment to go through this little escape plan step by step so it makes a little more sense as to how other key players in this were considered accomplices, and also to better understand the lengths that Alex went through to try and get away with this absolutely monstrous murder.
Okay. Step 1. The middlemen. Alex didn't own a boat and he didn't have the connections himself. So he did what men like him always do. He outsourced. He called Irene Pun, a social media influencer and friend, and asked her to help him disappear. Not find a lawyer, not turn myself in, but help him remove himself entirely from the situation. Irene then contacted Lam Shun, a yacht rental agent. This wasn't a vague or misunderstood request. In fact, it was quite clear what the assignment was. Smuggle a man wanted for murder out of Hong Kong. They negotiated a price of about $38,000 and the deal was set in stone. That's not confusion, that's just a straight up business transaction.
Exactly. Now, step 2, the boat-to-boat plan. What they planned is a well-known smuggling method. It's clean on paper, but it's illegal as hell. A small, unremarkable yacht would pick Alex up at the Tung Chung Pier. From there, it would head into open water past Hong Kong's maritime border. Once clear, Alex would transfer from the small yacht onto a larger ship already waiting offshore. That second vessel would then take him to a hidden landing point in Macau or mainland China, completely bypassing immigration. No stamps, no record of it, and if all went well, accountability for him could be waived. As long as nobody was watching.
So, step 3, the luxury hideout. While the boat was being arranged between February 24th and the 25th, Alex needed somewhere to hide. It couldn't be a spare couch, and certainly not a friend's extra bedroom. Of course, it had to be a luxury apartment. It just so happens his father's mistress, Ing, rented a high-end flat in West Kowloon for him to wait it out. Another adult making a conscious choice to protect a man everyone already knew was running from something catastrophic. Alex packed a run bag with his cash and watches and planned on moving in. Funny how people who claim they're innocent always pack like they're never coming back, though.
Exactly. And on to step 4, the collapse. On February 25th, Alex went to Tung Chung Pier to meet the yacht. He was calm, he was confident, and he was right on schedule. What he didn't know was that Hong Kong police were already tracking him, either through phone data, tips, or both. So the pier was never going to be an exit. It was, in fact, his trap. As Alex waited on the dock, undercover officers moved in. He was tackled to the ground before he ever stepped foot on the boat. No dramatic escape, no last-minute leap to freedom, just handcuffs and his face on the ground. And the end of the fantasy.
Nice. Good. So now that we dragged you through all of that, here's why. In June 2025, Irene Pun and Lam Shun were each sentenced to 6 months in prison. The judge was clear. They knew Alex was wanted for a brutal murder. They knowingly used their professional connections to help him evade justice. And the court ruled that helping a killer escape was a serious blow to the justice system. Well, go figure.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't unlucky. They were complicit, and the sentence reflects that.
Yeah, and as of February 2026, Alex Kwong and Kwong Kao are jointly charged in connection with the killing of Abby Choi. The primary charge is murder, stemming from Abby's death on February 21st, 2023. Under Hong Kong law, a murder conviction carries a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment. There's no range and there's no discretion. There's no version of this where they walk away at all, ever again. Prosecutors also added an additional charge in December of 2023, and that was the preventing of the lawful burial of a body. That charge followed the discovery of Abby's dismembered remains and reflects what the court already understands, that this wasn't just about killing her, it was about making sure what was left of her could not be properly laid to rest. And before the murder trial could even get underway, Alex had to deal with the crimes he'd been dodging for nearly a decade. So, in June of 2024, he was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for unrelated offenses dating back years before Abby was killed. He pleaded guilty to 6 counts of theft involving the stealing of gold and jewelry worth $806,000, committed between 2013 and 2015. He was also convicted of bail jumping after failing to surrender to custody in 2015, which allowed him to live as a fugitive for nearly 8 years. 8 years of lying, hiding, and letting other people absorb the consequences. That sentence didn't close his book, it just kind of caught up to the current chapter of it.
The High Court trial for murder and burial-related charges is scheduled to begin on September 21st, 2026. The case will also include Anthony Kwong, who is charged alongside his brother and his father. The trial is expected to last about 45 days. 45 days of evidence, 45 days of testimony, 45 days where the story they tried to obliterate with a meat grinder gets told out loud. Accountability didn't stop with the men. Alex's mother, Jenny Lee, was convicted of perverting the course of justice and sentenced to 18 months in prison in October 2025. The court found she obstructed the investigation by hiding Alex's location and urging him to flee once the case began closing in, which, again, was not confusion or the usual maternal panic. It was a conscious decision to protect the wrong person at the worst possible moment.
Yeah, and this is where the case stands. There's no mystery left about who did what, just a long public reckoning that's been delayed for far too long. And it's finally time for the court to cook up some justice. And that's it, Holly. That's the tragic, fucked up, unbelievable story of Abby Choi. We made it to the end, and how the fuck do you feel?
About the same as when we started.
Okay. All right. Well, you're not going to ruin this for me because this is my favorite part of our episodes, Holly. Of course I'm going to sing it.
Of course.
Why
are you going to do the dance?
I was just doing it. Now you've ruined it for everybody.
That's fine. Sorry, everybody. All 4 of you.
Why this case is a hot mess. Yay! All right, well, this case is a hot mess for a few very specific reasons, and none of them involve bad luck or a sudden snap. Point number 1, because entitlement was mistaken for ownership. The Kwong family lived off Abby's money for years, built their entire stability around it, and when she tried to pull it back, they didn't see boundaries, they saw theft. Point number 2. Because routine was weaponized. Abby wasn't abducted in secret or chaos. She was taken during a normal school pickup in broad daylight by people she trusted, employed, and had no reason to fear. Point number 3. Because every system meant to stop this failed quietly. A fugitive lived freely, financial loopholes stayed open, and police were lied to in the first critical hours. All the warning signs were there, and they were ignored until it was too late.
Everyone just kept accepting the setup because it was familiar and convenient, until entitlement turned into planning, and then planning turned into murder. This wasn't a mystery, it was a slow-motion disaster, and everyone treated it like business as usual.
Damn Skippy.
Thank you.
And make sure you're following Hot Mess Murder Club anywhere you get your podcasts nowadays. New episodes drop every Monday straight into your ear holes for your listening delight. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube for Case Cleanup, where we take true crime cases, break them down to bare bones, pun intended, and give you the straight facts with no bullshittery attached. So yeah, pack your shit and get the fuck out of my house because this case is done. And remember, if someone loses their mind the second you set a boundary, then congratulations, you have just met the problem. Goodbye.
Bye.
Say bye, Kiki.